So today I've got an LG, it's a 47LN5200, 47L Lincoln N Nancy 5200, and when I hit the power button, the power LED begins to do its thing. All I get is a small screen flash. And so if you watched my other video recently with the bad LED, I suspect we have another set with a defective LED. Let me go ahead and hit it one more time. There it goes. All you see is a quick flash. I see, kind of hard to catch on the video, but I see a bright flash on the bottom. Almost no light whatsoever in the middle of the screen, and a small flash on the top of the screen. So I suspect something in the LED drive circuit has gone south on this one. Okay, so I'm looking at the power supply board here, and you can see it's almost a mirror image if you split it right down the middle here. This is the plug that the LEDs connect to the power supply board. And this is the main transformer. It looks like it goes through a couple little buffer transformers. On the bottom there's some more components, and it's rectified by these two diodes that drive the two leads for one set of LEDs. These two diodes drive these two for the other set of LEDs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook my just one lead to the cathode of these diodes. Both of the cathodes are tied together. It goes through this coil, it's filtered by these capacitors, then it goes to the positive side of the LED here. Now how convenient, they added these two little test points right here, which are the returns of the LEDs. I'm going to put my meter in the min-max mode and turn the set on. And I see 92.7 volts there. And so I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with respect to this return path right here. Turn the set back on. And I only see 43.2 volts on that side. So next I'm going to investigate disassembling the panel and seeing if I have a defective LED in there. Okay, so I'm going to start by removing the connectors to this little circuit board, unless I can just get the whole circuit board out of here, which is a possibility. I'm not sure how it actually mounts. Oh, it just clips in. And then I want to take the T-con cover off. I'm going to put the screws back in the timing controller board, I think, or just remove the whole board, but I need to ultimately remove these two ribbon cables that attach the timing controller to the LCD panel. And so now I have to remove the screen frame as well, and going all the way around the front of the set there's these clips. So I'm just going to release those clips and take the plastic frame off the front of the set, as well as I need to go ahead and get the speakers out of the way so they actually unplug, so they're quite easy to move out of the way because I don't want them falling out as I flip the set over. So now I've got the timing controller board off. This is a ribbon cable that connects to the panel, and to remove that it's just a matter of lifting up on the tab and the cable pulls out. The same thing over here on the LCD panel to remove that cable. Okay, so I've got the screen frame off. You're looking at the LCD panel sitting here, laying face up, and it appears that it has some little tabs that must be released in order to get the metal frame off of the screen frame before I can take the LCD panel off. Now, judging by the looks of things, the top and the bottom rails have to be removed first. And then you have to be very careful with these circuit boards. They'll normally just lift very, very carefully out of the way. Sometimes what I'll do, if I'm worried about it, is I'll actually very carefully flip them all the way up and secure them with a piece of tape to the screen. I don't think I'm going to do it on this one because the flat flexible cables are very short. I don't want to put any more stress on. Now there is a small tab that, let me see if I can get it into the picture, which is why you have to take the top and the bottom rails off. There's a small tab that mounts underneath first you have to remove. So let's zoom back out just a little bit here. And I can get, there we go, got that one loose. Same thing with the other side. So I've got the pieces removed from the screen frame. And so next I'm just going to very carefully reach underneath, make sure that I can very easily, with no force whatsoever, this all has to move extremely easy. If it binds whatsoever, it will damage the screen. It's very thin. So I'm just going to reach under in the middle. You can see how much it flexes without damage. I'm just going to leave it sitting right there. Now there's a possibility that the screen could be removed from this set, attached to this black plastic frame by just releasing these tabs, but some of the tabs, they're kind of hard to get to. They're underneath the metal portion, but I don't see why you couldn't do it. I don't want to take the chance. I'd rather remove everything separately and do it that way after removing the metal retainers. But so next I do have to remove this black plastic, and it is just these tabs all the way around the screen that have to be released. Okay, I've got the screen frame completely released. It can be just taken off. And I'm just going to bring it and set it on the panel. Now the next thing is going to be removing the diffuser. And I'm going to try to keep these all in the same order. I'm just going to set those down there. They have to go on the same way in most cases, so there's no damage. Now I'm going to reconnect the set and power it on with the LEDs visible here. You can actually look and see each individual LED here. So let me go ahead and do that, and we'll take a look and see if we can figure out which ones are and are not working correctly. Okay, so I've got the camera raised up just a little bit here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn the set on. And if you look closely, you'll see that some of the LEDs do light for just a second. Other ones do not. We'll do it one more time. Now I can clearly see that the middle ones here are not lighting whatsoever. So I'm going to have to pull back this paper. Hopefully I can get these clips out easily. Only thing holding it down. Unfortunately, it looks like the only way to remove these is to actually squeeze them together from the bottom and push them through the board, or push them through the back of the LCD panel. Luckily there's only 5 of them. I've taken 2 out already. There's one there, there's one up there, and the last one is under the main board, so I'll have to move the main board out of the way to get to it. Okay, so I've got all the little retainer clips loose. Next, this whole piece should just lift right up and out of the way, and then you can actually get to the circuit boards with the LEDs on them. Okay, so what I've got here is I've got my 2 probes. I've got these hooked up to my power supply, and I've determined that 24 volts is a good voltage to drive one string of these LEDs. And so if I connect it, there's test points and they're labeled plus and minus. You can see that some of the LEDs do light up. Now on this one I don't get anything. So I suspect that's where my main problem is. But before we troubleshoot that, let me show you something else. Okay, so I'm going to start up here on the top of the picture. And if you notice, the third one from the right is not illuminated at all. The next row down, they're very dim, but if you notice, the center one is not illuminated at all. The next row down, every one of them works fine. There's the one that's in question, no illumination whatsoever. Next to the bottom row, you can see the second from the left is completely out. And on the very bottom row, you can see the center one is completely out. So I'm driving these with 24 volts right now, so I'm going to turn my power supply down to about 12 volts. And there's another junction here in the middle, so I can add voltage to that, and you can see that this one is still out. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. Those four work. And you can see there's nothing here, so I know that the problem is one of these four LEDs is open. Those work. Those work, but very dim, so this one's dropping a lot of voltage. And then that one, it actually tripped my power supply. I have the current set to trip at about 200 milliamps if it goes over that, so I've lowered the voltage down to about 11 volts. It still tripped it. Let me lower it down just a little bit more to about 10.5 volts. And so this one's obviously shorted because it's actually drawing too much current. Okay, so upon closer inspection, what I've done is I've popped the lens off, which just sits and it's glued in with 3 little drops of glue, and I've noticed that there's a burn spot, which is the reason I addressed this one first. I see a little burnt mark on the bottom around the circuit board. And now to gain access to this, these are actually just glued down. You have to pry them up. Sometimes if you can't get them, you can add a little bit of heat to release the adhesive, but just keep very gently working on it. I realize part of this is off camera, I'm sorry about that, but once you get it up, then the whole thing just unplugs off of there. You can see the adhesive on the bottom. So what I'm going to have to do is heat up the bottom of this board enough to get that solder molten enough that I can go ahead and remove that LED and replace it. Okay, so I have this LED assembly out of a scrap set. It's a little bit different, but I'm going to take my paint stripper gun. First I'm going to pry off the lens. Just pop it off there. It's just glued into place. And I'm just going to bring my paint gun onto low. Hopefully you can see this in the camera. And I'll do this in real time. I'm holding this about 1 inch away from the circuit board right now. So it should heat the circuit board up to the point where the solder becomes molten. Somewhere I'd say between about 20 and 45 seconds. There we go. And I'm just going to slide that LED out of the way. Next I'm going to do the same thing to the defective LED. Okay, so here's a nice good close-up of the defective one. Now I realize this is going to damage the adhesive, but I don't think it's going to make a bit of difference right here. I have this board just suspended. It's not clamped like the other one was because of the adhesive on the back. I don't want to damage the adhesive any more than I absolutely have to. And I don't have a super clean environment to set this down on, unfortunately. The workbenches here are particle board. So with any luck, this one will let go just like the other one did. Seems to be taking a bit longer. We may have to run a jumper wire. This trace on this other side doesn't look too terribly good. In fact, it just broke apart. I'll probably have to clean that off with the tip of the soldering iron to clean the damaged part, but you can see the LED just broke into 2 pieces there. Alright, I have the new LED positioned. I'm going to turn on the pink stripper gun, and I've added just a small amount of flux to the bottom of the LED. And so once the solder becomes molten, it should take, like it just started to do. I'm going to orient it in the correct position here. Hopefully it wants to stay. Certainly not wanting to stay like I want it to stay. Now I'm going to have to run a very small jumper from the top of this LED to this lead right here, which is going to be incredibly fun to do. Okay, so I have the LED mounted to the board, and I'm just going to attach my 12-volt power supply, and you can see that it does indeed light up. I'm lighting all the other LEDs as well, and I will have to attach this lens to the board as well. And with the lens attached, it looks just exactly like all the other LEDs do. So I'm going to go ahead, and I had to take off, this is held on with adhesive, this little cover that goes over the LED. Hopefully the adhesive is still good. I see some of it peeled off, but hopefully the remainder is still in good shape. It just mounts on the board here. It looks to be pretty good, and then the lens actually attaches around it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I've got the board back in the set, and I'm going to fire it up now. And you can see the LED works. Interestingly enough, this one actually started working a second later. We still have one that's out, two that's out. I could go ahead and change those. Honestly, what I would recommend on this set, there's probably going to be many more dropping. I think I'm just going to give it back to the customer as is, because I don't think it's got very much life left in it because of the other LEDs that are probably going to fail. But I'm going to recommend that the customer run the backlight control as low as they can possibly stand it. As with any LED set, I recommend that you always run the backlights as low as you possibly can. This is kind of one of the things I predicted when LEDs first came out, that we would start to see massive amounts of defective LEDs, and it looks like it's starting to hold true. So I'm going to go ahead and begin to reassemble the set, put the diffusion plates and the reflectors and everything back on it, and then we will give it a road test. So I thought I'd show you real quick what it looks like with just the diffusion plate on there and without the LCD panel on there. The bands that you're seeing going up through the picture are because of the shutter lens. There's not actually a dark spot in the picture whatsoever. It's all one brightness because the shutter speed on the camera and the LEDs actually flicker on and off to increase the refresh rate of the LCD panel. So that's what you're actually seeing as bars. So you notice when I first turned it on, it had no bars. So let's go ahead and put it back together and make sure everything works. So I've got the screen frame on and I'm putting the screws in. Once again, as in my last video, make sure before you put this together that the LCD screen sits absolutely flush in the screen frame all the way around the set. If one corner pops up at all, you've got to remedy that, and not by simply pressing down on the glass, because that will cause the LCD panel to crack. And if it does crack, then the ball game is over. And there's nothing you can do about that. No way to repair a cracked screen. Alright, so here's our initial run. First time firing this up. Let's see what we get here. We get a AV input. Let's see if I can find any kind of a menu on this thing. There we go. That certainly looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and put the back on it and get it buttoned up, and we'll see what it looks like from there. Okay, got this thing all back together. It's on its stand. Everything's looking good. First thing I wanted to look at was the backlight adjustment. It is set to 100. So, like I said, if you own an LED TV, most definitely I would reduce this down to a much lower amount. If you can live with it at 0 or even 25, that would be so much better. Either that, or even if you change some of these other settings, you can see the backlight is at a much lower level. I almost be willing to bet if the customer had simply reduced it from 100 to 90 when the set was brand new, they probably would not be having this problem right now. But just because it's driven absolutely as hard as it possibly can, then it's heck on these LEDs. They just can't deal with it. So I'm going to real quickly run through this auto programming, pick some channels, and take a look at the picture on it. Alright, so here's our set all up and running. We even got sound and everything. There we go. Everything's working good. Thank you for watching. I do try to answer your comments occasionally. I seem to have more luck on Twitter than on the YouTube comments. So if you have a question, definitely send me a tweet and I will try to answer it when I get a free moment. Once again, with your help, we can keep these things out of the landfill and out of the recycle bin. Remember, if you have one of these sets or any LED TV, go into your picture mode, go into your settings, and get in here and turn your backlight down, because having a bright backlight is not good. It makes the picture look very vivid, and in some cases it's too bright. It might even hurt your eyes in the long run, especially if you watch TV in a darkened room. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at NorCal715. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.